Well, let's take a look at some stuff coming our way. Mostly stuff I already talked about previously. Most notably, the Watchmen animated take, which I guess I've already forgotten is going to be split up because it's calling itself Watchmen Chapter 1. So I always thought Watchmen would make a better miniseries rather than a film. And I guess since they're splitting it up, this is about as close as you'll get to it. Of course, Zack Snyder's movie was so damn long, and in the ultimate edition of it, you pretty much they could have cut that up into a series, and the whole pirate cartoon and all that stuff, which I really liked. But yeah, there's so much to the Watchmen series that obviously a one season deal, but nevertheless, I think to encapsulate it as best as you possibly can in the medium of film or television, what have you, that would have been the better approach. But maybe the cartoon will do all right. And it's the animated stylings of itself, but it does seem to borrow as much as it possibly can to Dave Gibbons' art. And so they did this Red Band trailer, and it's Red Band because, well, Dr. Manhattan's dong is hanging there. So the guy just didn't like clothes. He didn't see the point. I mean, he was a brilliant scientist to begin with, and he's got godlike powers, but and he was too blue to join the nudist colonies, so I guess that's why he had to leave the Earth at the end. But anyway, sure, I'll check it out. But for the most part, and I wouldn't know if they would bother with the prequels and stuff that DC published a time ago. The Minutemen I thought was pretty good. I didn't really mind any of them. Some of them were just kind of, okay. The Ozymandias one was just, because it had Jay Lee's art, it was just, really a beautiful sight to see. But Minutemen was probably the best of the batch that Darwin Cook did. But ultimately, I don't know. I mean, I suppose they could if there's any real interest in it. But for the most part, Watchmen had its time, and it's a pretty much a one and done story, and probably best to just move on. Certainly, it'd be nice if people learned from it, but no one ever really did. Of course, that's been talked to death as well. People thinking everything had to be grim and gritty and violent and whatnot, and that was missing the overall approach to it. Plot-wise, was never really all that impressed with it, but the mood and atmospherics of it was quite an achievement, and the orchestration of the detailing of the panels and whatnot is something that would probably drive you insane if you tried to do that year after year. But still, yeah, what else is there to do with Watchmen? And it's not bad that they're doing an animated series. Doing it, they've done it. So, but more akin, it's time to move on. Another one that I briefly guess I did hear about this. I don't know, but Nicolas Cage will be Spider-Man Noir, an animated take on the character. And of course, I was aware of Spider-Man Noir, and I always thought, that's kind of cool. And there were other Marvel characters in that iteration of them, and I just never got around to reading it. And I suppose I need to look back in on that and check it out, because I do like that era, and I would like to see animated features of the Pulp Fiction characters that were the precursors to comic book superheroes and the like. But this is probably all we're going to get as far as that goes, where you just have a Pulp Fiction style Spider-Man. Of course, there was a Pulp Fiction Spider-Man. It's just called The Spider. but he was, a bit derivative of the Shadow. Of course, the movie serial, he had that face mask and everything that Alex Ross used, which gave him a more different look that differentiated him visually from the Shadow, which I thought, yeah, it's a good idea, actually. Looked kind of silly in the movie serial, but nevertheless, I appreciate that look better for that. So this will be a series. Apparently, it will be first on MGM Plus before you can see it on, let me check, I forgot where. Prime Video. Okay, yeah, well, all right. So I guess things will be spoiled before you get a shot to see it if you don't have MGM Plus, which I do not. So anyway, a little series there. I like, again, the era and stylings and whatnot, so hopefully it'll be pretty good. It won't have any connection to Peter Parker. It won't be Peter Parker. Yeah, here it says it. Won't be Peter Parker. It'll be a much older character in Depression era New York, which is perfect for the pulp stylings that it intends to be. And that's really the selling point of it overall. Hopefully they actually have a decent story for it, so there you go. It's got my interest, and we'll see how that turns out. Meanwhile, in that other cinematic shared universe, no, not DCU, the Conjuring universe. Basically, the Conjuring is coming to an end, at least for the version that began it, with the fictionalized presentation of Ed and Lorraine Warren. And so the Conjuring 4 will be the final chapter for them. However, there is going to be a Conjuring TV series, which might be the main push forward for that. It's theoretically they could go on as long as there's interest for the spin-off movies, and that sort of thing. So I'm guessing, I don't know if they would recast the roles or have them be in the TV series. I know very little of the series at the moment, or if they would move on to some other characters or other people involved in this type of work and do fictionalized versions of them as well. I just don't know. But a lot of it is sort of the lore, if you will. I know people will take it seriously and believe in some of them give me pause, some of these stories, but for the most part, I don't know for sure. But it does make great material for horror movies and perhaps a series, should that prove successful going forward and all that. So it's not known about the movie either as to which story they would pursue, since all of them are based on actual events. So of course Amityville House, which of course there's been several movies on that story, but the Warrens were a part of that, and it was depicted somewhat, and I forget which of the Conjuring it was, but as far as them returning to that or doing it at this point, probably not. I mean, it would kind of be the obvious thing, I suppose. But The Haunting in Connecticut, there was a movie done on that already, so maybe they'll skip that, but they could, do their own take on it. The Smurl family, I'm not familiar with that story. I'm looking at this one. That a demon inhabited their home, so maybe they could do that one. There was supposed to be a film based on The Crooked Man, but looks like Hellboy beat them to it, although I think there is another Crooked Man movie that was already made. But The Crooked Man had an appearance in Conjuring 2, and so just by that, I think they could probably make a movie out of that. Just say, hey, it's connected, but it wouldn't necessarily have anything to do with the Warrens. So maybe that would be a separate thing. Something like that was announced, but you know how that goes. They'll plan something and it never comes to fruition, or the steam ran out. And it could be Conjuring 4 is it. And if the TV show doesn't work well, then, well, you can close the door on that one. but you know, tangentially connected films, it could still be a possibility. Because the La Llorona, I'm probably saying it wrong. It's only a little bit connected to it, but that's about it. But that sort of thing they could do more of, because it's all the folklore of these supernatural encounters and whatnot. And so there's plenty of those to delve into. It's just other people can too. There's no one who really owns any of this stuff, so you got to have your own bent to it. And moving beyond the Warrens, you know, it becomes more and more, well, you're just doing your own version of the same thing. So you'll have Hellboy versus the Crooked Man, other Crooked Man. And of course, when it comes to folklore and that sort of thing, which Hellboy, the series in the comic books, delved in quite a bit. But again, don't own any of that. So anyone can do their own version. You just can't copy, you know, to a T how the different series did it. But I've always liked the Conjuring universe. Most of the movies are very repetitive, and that's a weakness in these things, and it's inevitable. But again, with this one, was the ultimate draw and power to it was the mood and atmospherics. But of course, when it becomes repetitive, it's like, you know, you get tired of it, and that's so. Probably for the best. I don't know what kind of ending they'll give to it, or you know, end it off with the, you know, the Warrens passed away, and maybe they'll make note of that. Whatever they're supposed to have been their final battle and all this sort of thing, possibly. But beyond that, not really seeing what's the other story to tell. Other than, is there a different angle to some other account or story of a haunting or something like that? Perhaps someone could find that and continue The Conjuring. Finally, in the comic book realm, a little something that I probably should have done for my Wednesday comic show, but we'll do it here very quickly. If you go to the Comic-Con this year, you'll have a chance to see more of a preview of the upcoming Absolute DC, or DC Absolute, a line of rebooted DC comics. And the first look is at Batman of this ash can cover. It's black and white. And the reboot is necessary because they're in bad shape. It didn't have to be this way. There's been multiple reboots. They keep screwing up and ignoring what worked, in my opinion, to chase after nonsense. I mean, after Rebirth, Superman got really good. And then Brian Michael Bendis came in and ruined everything. Had they stayed on that track, they'd be in much better shape. Since then, Batman has fallen far, you know, due to the likes of idiocy of Tom King and nobody. Chip Zdarsky was a big disappointment. So it's all very, very bad. So looking at Marvel, which reintroduced their Ultimate line, and it now Ultimate Spider-Man outsells Amazing Spider-Man. So they're, you know, it's like, well, why don't we do that? So it's, you know, it's another line. You're tired of what they're doing with the original, or what have you, or the mainstream of these characters. So it's an offered a regular series of them, starting over and redesigning them and all that sort of thing. And so it garners interest, but it can only go so far, because I'm kind of already done with the Ultimate line. I don't see it as successful as maybe others have. But, you know, maybe it'll pick up steam. I don't know. But right now I'm kind of petered out on it. It still has the advantage of being sort of new compared to, you know, the crap of the mainstream comics. But anyway, this, well, this Batman is just way too exaggerated. not a fan of this look. It looks like he's going to have more of wings, because you can see in the back there's more of the cape, but maybe it works as a cover of these wings that maybe he can use to glide on, similar to what Batman did in the Nolan films and that sort of thing. But he's just so bulked up and exaggerated. It's the style that this artist is doing. And maybe that'll work overall, but right now, this is the first image, not great. Batman looks like the Tick. He's got this little head on this. The bat symbol is so just stripped down from everything it once was. I guess this is like the geometric minimalism of the Frank Miller take on the bat symbol, but way beyond that. And I would take the two top spikes there, eliminate that, elongate somewhat of the bottom, just a tad, and the middle part at the bottom go a little longer to have something of the bat shape, and it would still be original unto itself and be different. A lot of the theories is Batman's approaching public domain. So if they redesign him to a point that this look is theirs because it bears scant resemblance to the original Batman, then they could maintain hold of that. But other than that, it's a thought. I'm sure there's some thinking into that. But I don't know. Not a great first image to be the first image you see of your new effort and endeavor for your DC characters. So I don't know what they'll do with Superman, but this is pretty much all there is for it, and we'll have to see how that turns out. But not all that thrilled with the image. But again, it's only one image, and might think differently in the long term. So anyway, there you go. Boy, there's stuff to look forward to. But, I'm interested in the Spider-Man cartoon and the Watchmen I'll check out. And, of course, have followed the Conjuring quite a bit. And I'm definitely going to give Absolute DC a shot, and see how that turns out. But anyway, there we go for a little coming attractions episode for this Friday on the Nailsin Rating.